It was very disappointing and discouraging trying to find the right school for Rael. There were several schools that just outright said we don't have the facilities or the capability to take a child with special needs.
You're spending 5 minutes with a missionary. This podcast is a window into missionary life. It's fun, it's personal, it's real, and it's always an adventure. During Season 5, LCMS missionaries serving around the world are talking about school. Today we'll hear from Britt Odemba. She is an education consultant, specifically working with a child sponsorship program in Kenya.
6.5 years ago, my daughter Rael was born. The day after she was born, she was diagnosed with Down syndrome. As you can imagine, that really was a shock to both my husband and I, and we had to make different adjustments to our life for a different future than what we had expected. One of the things that came about was trying to find a school for Rael. Typically in Kenya, a child with special needs does not have very many options for schooling. There are some schools that cater to children with special needs, but oftentimes these schools will kind of lump all the children together, meaning you might find children with cerebral palsy, with autism, some who are blind, some who are deaf, some who have Down syndrome, some who have other learning disabilities, and they put them into one school. As you can imagine, this can be very difficult in trying to meet the individual needs of each child. And so when it came time for Rael to go to school, my husband and I visited several different schools, including some of these public schools here in Nairobi. It was very disappointing and discouraging trying to find the right school for Rael. There were several schools that just outright said we don't have the facilities or the capability to take a child with special needs. We finally found a school that was close to our house. It was a preschool through high school, and we first talked to the preschool director and told her our story. We told her about Rael and her different developmental needs, and she was very open to the idea of having Rael at the school. However, it was time for us to go on home service. So my family packed our bags and we went to the United States for 3 months. That was January through March of 2020. Well, you can imagine when we came back, March 2020, COVID had hit. The schools in Kenya were closed for 1.5 years. So at that time, I had both my children at home, Rael and her younger brother, Silas. And luckily, since I had been a preschool director and teacher, I was able to do several things at home with my children to ensure that they developed some school skills, but also had some great family time with them. So fast forward to the next year when schools reopened in Kenya. And so at that time, my husband and I revisited the school that we thought was going to be a good fit for Rael. We again met with the preschool director, and she was a little shy this time and timid. She had said that during the last year, she had a bad experience of enrolling a child with special needs, and the bad experience was with the parents. The parents were very demanding and felt that the school was not meeting the child's needs. She looked at us and told us she thought that this was not going to be a good fit for Rael. So back to the drawing board. My husband and I continued our search in trying to find the right school. It was quite discouraging, and after several months, I was sharing this with one of my colleagues. A week or so after that, my colleague actually came back to me and said, Britt, I went to a guest house and was visiting one of the bishops of Africa for the Lutheran Church when I came across a Kenyan lady at the guest house. I asked her what she did, and she was actually a specialist in special education. And the Kenyan lady said, give her my contact and I will be happy to talk with her. And a few days later, I was able to have coffee with this Kenyan lady. She gave me contacts to a university that specifically trains teachers for special education. She thought that maybe I could find someone there who could homeschool Rael or become a shadow teacher. Shadow teachers are very common here in Kenya. Oftentimes, parents decide that their children will not go to a special education school. And so what they do is they put them in a regular elementary school with having a shadow teacher, someone who comes alongside the child and who shadows them throughout the day, ensuring that they do the different activities and get that individual attention. So I shared this all with the wonderful Kenyan lady, and she said, Britt, this sounds kind of funny, but in my Zumba class, there is a girl who's around 18 years old who has Down syndrome. Let me see if I can contact her parents and find out which school she had attended. So a week later, she talked to the parents, and the parents told her that their daughter had gone to Nairobi Waldorf School, and they had a wonderful experience there. We decided the next day to go to the school, and we happened to meet the special education consultant for the school. We shared with him our story about Rael and how we wanted her to be in a school and get her needs met. And it was at that time that he said, yes, we can take your daughter. My husband and I were so overjoyed, and it was a definite answer to prayer that we found this school that was able to accept our daughter and to be prepared for her. So our daughter has been there for 1.5 years now, and we thank God for this wonderful opportunity for our daughter to get the great education. The Waldorf learning experience has been great in that it's hands-on. In the preschool, they do a lot of storytelling and dancing and singing and handiwork and knitting and so many fun things that my daughter enjoys. And so we don't know what the future holds and how she will continue to grow at the school, but we thank God that he provided for an opportunity for our daughter to develop and to have a wonderful time.
Thanks for spending 5 minutes with a missionary. To learn more about Britt and her husband, Micah, go to lcms.org/Odemba. You can also sign up for their newsletter using the link in the show notes. You can find this podcast on kfuo.org/missionary podcast or anywhere you get your podcasts. Join the LCMS International Mission community on Facebook or Instagram at LCMS International Mission.